an uncommon, common man. That's what Oprah called him. He's considered such a nice guy that Harold Ramis didn't cast him for the lead role in the film Groundhog Day, and fans from all over the world sincerely believe in his holiness. His roles make us rethink our views on what is good and what is bad. Whether he plays a captain of a military mission or a lover with a broken heart, you can't help but wonder, what would you do in his place? Tom Hanks, actor, screenwriter, producer, and most recently, writer, winner of 2 Oscars for Best Actor in 2 consecutive years, he's become the embodiment of the best American ideals on screen. But is he really that perfect? What childhood experiences influenced Tom? Why doesn't he like to remember Forrest Gump? And what horrible crime do conspiracy theorists accuse him of? Hello everyone, this is Biographer, so let's get started. On one of the hot summer days in California, a boy was born who was destined to become the world's favorite. Tom Jeffrey Hanks was born on July 9, 1956 in Concord and became the 3rd child in a large family. At that time, Tom's father, Amos Mefford, and mother, Janet Marlin Frazier, were raising a boy and a girl, Sandra and Larry. After some time, Tom himself became the elder brother. A younger sibling, Jim, was born into the family. It's difficult to call the Hanks family well off. Amos worked as a cook in a local restaurant, and Janet was listed as an employee of the local hospital. However, according to family legend, Janet was a distant relative of President Abraham Lincoln. When the boy was not even 5 years old, his parents divorced. According to local California laws, custody of the children remained with the father. The mother was only able to take 1-year-old Jim. As Tom would recall, this was a huge shock for him. The future actor missed his mother very much and dreamed that one day she would appear on his doorstep. The only way to be with his mother was to take long bus rides to the small town of Red Bluff in Northern California. So, from the age of 8 until almost adulthood, he waited for the school holidays to get on the bus and travel 4 hours one way. But these long trips taught him to be observant, looking out the window for hours and making up stories about what he saw around him. He imagined himself flying on an airplane, exploring, winning, taking revenge, getting into a fistfight. He recalled the films he'd watched and the books he had read about space. It was his love for space that would become the passion that he would carry with him through the years. Since the moment his parents divorced, the 3 eldest children of the Hanks family were essentially left on their own. Amos worked a lot in various small restaurants and spent his free time with different women. I was the 3rd kid, Tom recalls. I was just like a leaf blowing in the wind. No one did anything because I wanted it. I wasn't in control of nothing. Somebody else was always telling us what to do. The future actor's parents were so busy with their own problems that, according to him, they didn't always realize where exactly their children were at the moment. No one taught Tom how to brush his teeth properly, and so he only took up oral hygiene in middle school after the whole class was shown an educational film strip. That said, really, try to eat an apple and that cleans your teeth. So hey, I had an apple last week, so my teeth are kinda clean. Tom and his siblings ran the house while their father worked long hours. They ate frozen vegetables that he brought home and mostly knew what time it was thanks to what was shown on television. We didn't get in trouble. We were not delinquents or anything like that, but essentially Dad would say, "There's some frozen steaks and a can of tomato soup, and that's your dinner." Moreover, in search of a better life, the family often moved from place to place until they finally settled in Auckland. The children constantly changed schools, which affected their success and self-perception. By the age of 16, Tom had changed a dozen schools. "I was never intimidated by change. I was like an army brat who'd lived all around the world," the future actor said. At first, the new environment worried him, but over time, the boy got used to it. He simply learned that no matter how hard it was at first, everything would definitely get better, one way or another. The only thing that was most difficult for young Hanks was the inability to keep everything that was dear to him. During movies, he often lost things that were important to him, and over time, this resulted in a huge love for typewriters, which the actor would collect by the dozens as an adult. "I had nothing, actually, that stayed with me all through my life. I don't have anything from when I was 5 years old. I don't have anything from when I was 3. He bought his first typewriter when he was already a young man at 19, a Hermes 2000, which is now lost. Then this seemingly unusual object for the young man acquired additional meaning. "I said, oh yeah, this is going to stay with me for a while, and I am soothed by it. I'm soothed by having it. I'm soothed by knowing that I can take it anywhere with me," he recalled. At the same time, Tom grew up as a sociable boy, quickly making friends. Such frequent changes of schools led to the fact that he understood how to make the right impression in order to quickly make friends with other children. And the best way, of course, was a joke. I knew that when I went to a new school, sooner or later, someone was going to laugh at something I said in the handball line, and boom, it would all be fine. Sometimes it took 2 days, but other times it happened on the first day at lunch. But there was something else joyful in his life, a drama club. More precisely, more than one. At each new school, Hanks enrolled in a new one, and by the age of 12, he'd already decided that he would become an actor. The boy often attended plays, and from a young age, he began performing in children's productions. Cinema also became an inspiration. As a teenager, Tom watched Stanley Kubrick's 2001: A Space Odyssey, which impressed the future star so much that it remains his favorite film to this day. The film sank into his soul so much that years later, he remembers the very day he saw it. It has everything why people go to the cinema, regardless of the year, topic, or genre, Hanks believes. Tom realized for the first time that a film could be more than just entertainment. It can carry deep meaning and a new way of telling a story. It presented this romantic notion of a human being in this place void of life, he says. I had paid attention to the space program prior to that, but I was not hooked by the artistry or the romance of it until I saw that movie. The father was skeptical about his son's choice of profession, as he did not believe that antics on stage could bring in good money. But the son stubbornly believed that he would succeed and went towards his goal. After reading and watching Eugene O'Neill's play, The Iceman Cometh, he firmly decided to take the acting path. And his dream was so strong that soon the young man made a very bold move. After The Sting won an Academy Award in 1974, everyone in his drama class wrote letters to George Roy Hill congratulating him. But Tom didn't write a simple congratulation letter. Even then, even only subconsciously, he knew what he wanted from the future, and he understood that he would have to achieve his goal. After praising the director's work, he moved on to a cheeky proposal. Yes, he may be just a high school kid who's not particularly handsome, isn't built like a Greek god, and can't even grow a mustache, but still. Let's work out the details of my discovery. We can do it the way Lana Turner was discovered. Me sitting on a soda shop stool, you walk in and notice me, and bango, I'm a star. The young man wrote in a letter. Or perhaps we could meet on a bus somewhere and we casually strike up a conversation and become good friends. I come to you weeks later asking for a job. During the last few weeks, you've actually been working on a script for me, and bango, I'm a star. But until he became a star, he had to earn money for his needs. Tom washed dishes for a while, and on weekends, he worked as a bellman at a hotel at Heathrow Airport. It was here, during some unfortunate event, the story about which the future actor would tell years later as an example of how, even when he was young, he knew how to solve problems and find a way out of any situation. So one day a young man approached him and showed him a photo. In the photo, one man was satisfying another orally. He said, "Does anything like this go on in this hotel?" And it was a guy giving another guy a blowjob. This guy was saying, "You want to come up later and give me a blowjob? I'll pay you." And I said, "No, actually, I don't think anything like that does." Solved the problem. Gave the guy an honest answer and left him to his own. Having entered the University of California, the young man did continue to study dramatic art. While studying at his alma mater, Tom participated several times in the annual Shakespeare Festival held in Ohio. His first big role was Grumio in the production of The Taming of the Shrew. The first awards were not long in coming. In 1978, he received the Cleveland Critics Circle Award for the best male role in the comedy The Two Gentlemen of Verona. Initially studying inspired Hanks, who learned with enthusiasm. But over time, classical education disappointed him. Teaching seemed old-fashioned and boring to him, and his soul was drawn to creative experiments, avant-garde ideas, practice, and young directors. Soon, Tom met Vincent Dowling, the head of the Great Lakes Theater Festival, who offered him a job. For 3 years, Tom was engaged in stage design, costume design, lighting installation, and even directing. Thanks to this, he gained excellent experience, which included all aspects of theatrical life. But the dry theory of lecture halls bored the young actor. The only consolation was a girl, Samantha Lewis, with whom Tom began a relationship. As soon as he was offered a place in a small troupe from Cleveland, he dropped out of college without hesitation and went to conquer the theater stage. And one day, after graduating from college, Hanks took his father Amos to see the play Travesties by Tom Stoppard, staged by a troupe that the younger Hanks admired. I said, "I want to show you the thing I'm aiming for." And when it was done, I said, "If I can work at a place like this in a few years, this is the apex of it all for me. To be in something this good, in a repertory company, that means I'd really be a true artist and an actor." In 1980, after Tom dropped out of college, he moved to New York, At the same time, performing with his theater troupe, he tried to conquer the world of Hollywood. So, after many auditions, the actor got a small role in Armand Mastroianni's 1980s slasher, He Knows You're Alone. The film was a box office success, collecting $4.8 million in theaters with a budget of $250,000. The talented young man was noticed by an ABC talent agent and offered to try his hand at the television sitcom Bosom Buddies, where Tom gets the role of one of two advertising guys who cross-dress to rent an apartment in a woman's home.
This is nuts. This is stupid. This is crazy.
You're an artist. You're allowed to be crazy. Think about Van Gogh. He cut off his ear.
I know, but you're asking me to lose a lot more than that.
Although the show was canceled after 2 seasons, it gave Hanks his first exposure and the opportunity to land small roles in episodes of shows such as Happy Days, Taxi, The Love Boat, and Family Ties. During this period, the actor did not work with much pleasure. It was important to earn money as he had to provide for his young family. He and Samantha got married very quickly after college, and in 1977, the young couple had a son, Colin. Mutual acquaintances were surprised how the still unknown Tom managed to win the heart of a girl who was considered very practical and goal-oriented. Nevertheless, soon after the wedding, the family settled in New York, and after a while, Elizabeth Ann, the couple's second child, was born. Driven by a practical goal, Tom constantly knocked on the doors of theaters and film studios in search of work. My son Colin was born when I was very young, as well as my daughter, but that means we have this gestalt understanding because they remember when their dad was just a guy trying to, make the rent. Despite his young age, Tom was only 21 when he became a father. The actor himself thought of it more like a blessing. Hanks considers his children to be the best thing in his life, and such an early entry into adulthood saved him from the dizzying consequences of fame. He had no time for that. Now there were 4 of them, and he needed to find money to survive. I need to make enough to be able to go to the dentist and fix my car, and as soon as I can get on a decent dental plan, then the rest is the high country. That's what life was like. I avoided all the parties, the pitfalls. I did the same degree of social influencing drugs that anybody else did, but it didn't become a habit, and it didn't become a reason to live. He would later recall. But he was still far from fame, and so the actor was forced to agree to any job. Tom Howard, who knew Hanks from his time in Happy Days, invited him to a new project, the 1984 romantic comedy Splash. According to Tom himself, he got this job thanks to just one scene from Happy Days. What was this scene that impressed Howard so much?
And it was at Disney, and no one wanted to work for Disney, and no one would take the job. And eventually they said, hey, this guy who kicked Fonzie through his plate glass window might be good. And so I ended up auditioning for that.
The story tells how the main character falls in love with a mysterious woman who turns out to be a mermaid. That guy was Tom. The partner and part-time mermaid was Daryl Hannah. John Candy and Eugene Levy completed the star cast. Initially, Tom was not the only one considered for the lead role. He was competing with more famous actors, Chevy Chase, Bill Murray, and John Travolta, who refused to participate. Why did no one want to work with Disney in the 80s? It was because the famous studio was just beginning to master films with an adult audience, and it had little experience in this and an insufficient budget. Tom recalled that when he came to the studio, it was practically in a state of disrepair, not having changed a bit since its construction in 1958. Which reminded the actor of the Greyhound bus station in Selma, Alabama. They were looking to make a partnership, and they were making this relatively low-budget movie about a mermaid, he recalls. At the time, Hanks was hoping to land a supporting role, aiming for the role of the lead character's brother, so he was very surprised when Howard called him and said that not only had he gotten the job, but he'd also been invited to audition for the lead role. I wanted to make him guarantee that I could not screw up this opportunity, Hanks said. I still had this feeling that said, well, we love her, but who's that guy with the squeaky voice and the big hair? Do we need him? But it all worked out. The young actor was frightened by this turn of events because he was used to a completely different format of work.
I was incredibly intimidated because I'd been on 2 years doing Bosom Buddies, in which our whole job was to be funny. Our whole job was to be flashy, say funny things in a funny way.
Still, the actor recalls the filming with excitement. The most memorable was the underwater kiss with Hannah, as they were both without masks and could not see much in the water. Moreover, Tom had to learn the tricks of scuba diving to dive safely. Quote, that was one of the best great adventures of the whole thing, Hanks said, between going on vacation and getting paid to learn how to scuba dive. But he also had to give up his usual comedy role. He knew how to be funny, but that was not what the film or the director needed.
Your job is not to be as funny as Johnny or Gene. Your job is to love the girl. All right.
This project became a real gift for Hanks and an opportunity to show his strengths. Tom Hanks was the endearing everyman in Splash. That's what he projected. Film historian Leonard Maltin says, he couldn't have asked for a better vehicle that let him be funny, romantic, and even heroic in a broadly popular mass audience movie. Unexpectedly, the film received universal recognition and popularity, more than recouping its budget. Hanks was finally recognized on the streets, but the role did not bring him worldwide fame or financial independence. Therefore, the actor was forced to continue to take on any job, and as a result appeared in a number of not very successful films. During this period of his career, Tom was assigned the image of a youth films actor. Splash was followed by Bachelor Party, The Man with One Red Shoe, Volunteers, The Money Pit, Every Time We Say Goodbye, and Dragnet. Despite the American audience's cold reception of these projects, Hanks' work received almost no criticism. His performance was often praised as the best thing about these films. Thus, Walter Goodman of the New York Times praised the steady directorial hand of Nicholas Meyer and the stylishly droll performance of Tom Hanks, about whom Goodman added, he's a center of confidence amid the frantic goings-on, turning peril into opportunity with an accent and aplomb that are the birthright of an eighth generation born. During this period, the young actor began to acquire an image that would remain with him for a very long time. A funny and vulnerable everyman, an affable soul without a visible speck of vanity in his makeup. More like the nice neighbor next door than a movie star. Regular guy as star. The every guy, an unshakable nice guy image. Tom reacted to this image with irony. By 1988, he was delivering a Saturday Night Live monologue that morphed into an extended skit satirizing the cliche of how relentlessly nice he is. Therefore, it can be said that the modern idea of what Tom Hanks is like was established back in the 80s. Soon, fortune smiled on the actor. In 1988, the actor starred in the movie Big, where he played a 13-year-old boy, Josh, who suddenly turned into an adult man. The role, which was claimed by Robert De Niro, Harrison Ford, and Robin Williams, became decisive for Tom. The unusual plot allowed the actor to demonstrate the gentle humor and warmth that would accompany his entire career. According to another contender for the role, Matthew Modine, the script was initially darker. It was more like a horror film than a cute and funny comedy. It was with Tom's participation that the tone of the film changed dramatically. He brought the lightness to the movie that ensured its success. To make Tom play more confidently and convincingly, the film's director, Penny Marshall, resorted to trickery. She first filmed each adult scene with David Moscow, who played the young protagonist, and then Hanks copied the behavior of his young colleague. Moreover, Hanks, David Moscow, and Jared Rushton, aka Billy, had to play in a room with a bunch of toys. It was there that many of the wonderful ideas embodied in the film were born. The rap scene also required improvisation. The song that became very famous in the film was stolen. And not just anywhere, but at his children's summer camp. We needed a thing in the movie, and I said, how about if we just do this little thing? What would you do? So I did it, and we banged it out. He explained. Hanks' performance was highly praised by critics and earned him a Golden Globe and his first Oscar nomination. The film grossed $151 million and was included in the top 100 comedies according to the American Film Institute. He received $2 million for his role. After this film, the actor was eagerly invited to play comedy roles. The following works were less successful, but they managed to take a worthy place in the actor's filmography and the hearts of viewers. In the same year, the melodrama Punchline was released with Big, which barely recouped the budget. And in 1989, the actor got the lead role in the film The Burbs. He played an inhabitant of a quiet suburb named Ray, whose vacation comes to an end when a strange family settles in the neighboring house. Tom almost turned down the role, not entirely sure that a family comedy directed by Joe Dante was the direction he needed in his career. Fortunately, he was wrong. The touching, unconventional plot appealed to viewers who liked it as a social satire on the usual suburban American life. The film was quite successful at the box office, and Hanks' nervous, slightly immature character was loved by viewers. In many ways, the success was due to the fact that Dante gave the actors an opportunity for improvisation. Since the film was shot linearly and unfolded in stages, it was easy to include interesting moments. For example, the scene where Tom Hanks takes a gurney and gets into an ambulance with his personal idea.
I've been blown up! me to the hospital! Take me to the hospital, I'm sick!
A slightly greater success was accompanied by the film Turner and Hooch by Roger Spottiswoode in 1989, where Hank's partner was a four-legged slobbering friend. And not just any dog, but a dog that helps in the investigation of a murder, in the plot where Tom gets the role of a policeman named Scott Turner. Already at this period, Hank's star had a significant role. An example of this is the replacement of the film's original director, Henry Winkler, who had to leave the director's chair a week and a half after filming began. All because Tom and Winkler did not get along. Later, the director commented on this situation. "Let's just say I get along better with Hooch than I did with Turner." The filming was also not easy for the actor himself, all because of his furry partner, a dog named Beasley, whose reaction he found difficult to predict. In a 2001 interview with Larry King, Hanks recalled, "There's one scene in there. It's a stakeout scene. I'm staking out a scene of a crime with my dog Hooch, and we shot that scene for 16 hours with 3 different cameras. They were always rotating. We had a car on the set that was surrounded by bungee cams, literally cameras that were hanging from bungee cords. And the whole thing was about whatever this dog does, I react to it. When I ask the dog to do anything specifically, this dog will just do things." Trained dogs, Beasley and his replacement dog Igor became a real test for Tom. The dogs destroyed everything they could reach. Director Roger Spottiswoode only supported the ongoing chaos in order to convey as authentically as possible all the inconveniences of the main character from his new friend. Hooch did everything, Spottiswoode recalled. He demolished the kitchen. He was so well trained and he seemed to be having fun doing it, and demolished Tom Hanks' house. We actually made him a very nice little apartment, and Hooch came in and completely wrecked it. And Tom remembers the scene when Hank's character tied up the dog in the car as terribly exhausting. So much that he, quote, still has tactile memories of how hard that shot was to get.
Tired? Huh? Hope so. All right, it's just too bad. Now, look out. Look out. Come on.
Despite all the trials, the actor was able to overcome them with dignity. Tom had this amazing relationship with both Hooches, said Spottiswoode. I shouldn't say both. They became one Hooch. Watching Tom and this dog was a constant pleasure. I can't remember any sort of strange things, although there were loads of them. The film was warmly received by critics and audiences and grossed $71 million at the box office with a budget of $13 million. In 1990, Tom continued to shape himself as a comedic actor, collaborating with Brian De Palma on his project, The Bonfire of the Vanities, which was based on the novel by Tom Wolfe. During filming, Hanks was lucky enough to share the lead role with Bruce Willis, Kim Cattrall, Morgan Freeman, and Melanie Griffith. The film tells the story of stockbroker Sherman McCoy, who overnight turned from a successful man into a criminal through no fault of his own. The main character's misadventures were presented under the sauce of black humor, with the interweaving of politics, racial struggle, and irony over the American beau monde. For horror-loving De Palma, this project was not an obvious one. But the failure of his previous work, a Vietnam War drama, put the adaptation of Wolfe's acclaimed novel in jeopardy. The problem was that in the cynical, satirical original, it was hard to find the kind of positive character that audiences needed.
Look like shit. Don't smell too good either.
Oh, I think when I was in jail, I pissed in my pants.
That's why good guy Hanks was cast in the lead role. When he was offered the job, he thought it was a prank. He's a man with no soul, he has no heart, and he's utterly lacking in moral fiber, Hanks said at the time about Sherman. Can you imagine anything sadder than that? Why did he agree? It was an opportunity to show his new, reverse side of the role, to expand his acting range. In 2001, Hanks sat down for an interview with Oprah Winfrey, and Bonfire came up. Asked why he signed up for Sherman, Hanks admitted, "Because I was asked to, and back then that was still a big deal. I thought I could bullshit my way through." But the bet on this did not work. Tom failed to portray all the agreed baseness of his character. He looked more like that same grown-up child from Big who got confused in his decisions. This caused criticism from those who expected compliance with the original. In addition, they replaced part of the cast with black actors, but this did not save the filming from problems in the Bronx. Thus, the process was constantly stalled due to the fact that people sometimes threw eggs and light bulbs at the crew. The studio added to the confusion and complicated the work, constantly interfering in the process. But even taking into account the difficulties, everyone was sure that the film would be a success. Thus, one of the Warner Bros. Executives called it the best film we've ever made. Despite the wonderful cast and expectations, the film was met with very negative reviews from critics and flopped at the box office. Vincent Canby of the New York Times denounced Brian De Palma's gross, unfunny movie adaptation. Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly called it one of the most indecently bad movies of the year, giving it a D grade. Well, there was at least one pleasant moment in this story. Tom was paid $5 million for his participation, a fee which was equal to the fee of the then-famous Bruce Willis. Hanks has since considered the performance one of the worst in his career. In that same interview with Oprah, he admitted, "One of the crappiest movies ever made, and yet if I hadn't gone through that experience, I would have lost out on something valuable. Bonfire taught me that I couldn't manufacture a core connection." Another film of the year, Joe Versus's romantic comedy The Volcano, also failed to achieve great success. Hanks' duet with Meg Ryan was well received, with Roger Ebert calling the film new, fresh, and not afraid to take risks. But it failed to make much of a box office hit. Despite not very successful works, Tom's career was thriving. Success, good fees, and interesting projects gradually came into his life. Hanks soon decided to try himself in a new role. The film A League of Their Own by Penny Marshall in 1992 gave him the opportunity to try on a new role and play a rude, perpetually drunk coach, which was very different from the standard comedy good-natured image.
Because I couldn't figure out why you would throw home when we've got a 2-run lead. You let the tying run get on second, and we lost the lead because of you. Now you start using your head. That's that lump that's 3 feet above your ass.
The storyline was based on the true story of a real women's professional baseball league that existed during World War II, and Tom desperately wanted the part, begging Penny Marshall to take him on, to which she responded, "You need to eat more." And he did a pretty good job. But Hanks wasn't the only one who wanted to work on the project. Many Hollywood actresses wanted to participate in the story about strong women. Among the contenders for the leading roles were Demi Moore, Courtney Cox, Sarah Jessica Parker. As a result, Tom's campaign included Dottie Hinson, Lori Petty, Rosie O'Donnell, Anne Ramsey, Madonna, and others. Such a large number of young women living in one area led to difficulties during filming, which manifested itself in various connections, intrigues, gossip, and incitement. Interestingly, Hanks also did not miss the opportunity to join in the general fun. Thus, one day, an anonymous bulletin called Peach Fuzz was distributed on the set, revealing the sins and secrets of the film crew. When they began to figure out who was behind the revelation, it turned out that the gossip girl was Tom. And yet the actor managed to win the hearts of not only the audience, but also his colleagues. Gina Davis, years later, will tell in an interview about her experience working with Tom. "He's so incredible. He has the reputation of being an incredible human being anyway. But he really is. He's just a prince." Well, the film itself became very popular, receiving many positive reviews from critics. Vincent Canby of the New York Times wrote, "Though big of budget, A League of Their Own is one of the year's most cheerful, most relaxed, most easily enjoyable comedies. It's a serious film that's lighter than air, a very funny movie that manages to score a few points for feminism in passing." The film grossed $132 million at the box office, more than recouping its production costs. The actor considers A League of Their Own to be the film that gave his career a boost. It became a turning point after which Tom could no longer agree to any job that was offered to him, but choose the one that would help him move in the direction of the actor he wanted to become. Before that, a director had never said something to me like, "Come up with a reason why you're 36, broken down, and managing a woman's baseball team." Then it was Katie. Bar the door. I was looking for more of that from then on. He later remembered. It was thanks to this role that in 1992 the actor received his own star on the Walk of Fame. From that moment on, there was a turning point in Tom's consciousness. There came a moment when I said, "I'm not going to play pussies anymore." Up until then, I'd made a career out of playing ordinary guys who couldn't figure out how things work, Tom says. The actor decided to take a year off and think about what he wanted to do next in his career. He was tired of playing the typical unhappy guy looking for love. He wanted to play complex adult roles. He started questioning himself about who he was, what kind of creative person he was, and what he wanted from his creative destiny. Steve Martin once joked that Hanks the shortest route to becoming a movie star. He only made hits. And that's partly true. In 1993, Tom finally achieved success, and it happened thanks to two completely opposite works. Since then, almost any film with the actor's participation became a bestseller or was nominated for the highest Academy Award. So what kind of films are these? The start of the winning streak was the romantic comedy Sleepless in Seattle, where the actor played a single father who finds love thanks to his son's help. His co-star was Meg Ryan. The film was originally presented as a romantic drama, but screenwriter Jeff Arch's vision was rejected by studios because of the basic ideas. The lovers do not meet for the entire film. After the script was rewritten under the supervision of Nora Ephron, who eventually became the director, it received a comedy flavor. Ephron admitted that by the time she received the script for revision, she was already the fourth screenwriter, and the studio had little faith in the project. When the script was approved and work on casting began, the director had only two options for the main characters, Hanks and Ryan. And she was right. As we see in the final result of the film's release, Into the World, although there was some conflict. Thus, the actor admitted that he was irritated by the image of his character as a father. Tom did not agree with Ephron's vision of the father-son relationship format. I was very cranky, particularly when I first met her to do Sleepless in Seattle, because I was really big and, I had some hits under my belt, he told The New Yorker. It was a film about a father and son, and Tom was sure that Nora did not understand what exactly was going on between the son and father, the nuances of their relationship.
Is that you're a chick and I'm a dude, and dudes don't think that way in these circumstances. And she says, well, how do men think in that circumstance then? I said, he wouldn't say that. He'd said, diddle-a-beep-a-diddle-a-da-da-da-da-da.
Tom's comments were accepted, and the director herself, according to Hanks, often said, well, when you're right, you're right. Perhaps it was the collaboration of two extraordinary minds that led to Sleepless in Seattle becoming a hit that received 2 Oscar nominations, including for Best Original Screenplay. His next role shocked audiences with its boldness and poignancy. A young homosexual dying of AIDS in the 1993 drama Philadelphia brought the actor a well-deserved Oscar. Rejected by society, his character became a symbol of the struggle of all people who faced the disease. Philadelphia was the first major studio film to cover the topic of AIDS, despite the fact that at the time of the film production, there were a huge number of people who suffered from the disease. The topic was carefully avoided, especially in the context of the gay community. Director Jonathan Demme was not afraid to take on bold projects. We got together and tried to come up with a movie that would help push for a cure and save lives, Demme says. We didn't want to make a film that would appeal to an audience of people like us, who already had a predisposition for caring about people with AIDS. We wanted to reach the people who couldn't care less about people with AIDS. That was our target audience. For Tom himself, this role was a way to declare himself as a versatile actor, to show himself not only as a comedy or melodramatic actor, but to talk to the audience about serious issues.
Can you describe the circumstances in which you joined the firm Wyatt, Wheeler, Hellman, Teller, and Brown?
Miller, do you ever pray?
For this role, the actor lost 25 pounds, shaved his head, and worked, devoting himself to filming. However, the film was remembered not only for the theme and the scene of intimacy between Hank and Antonio Banderas, but also for the trial. The film creators based the plot on the real story of lawyer Jeffrey Bowers, but did so without the permission of his family. As a result, the lawsuit was withdrawn, and the terms of the agreement between the parties were not covered in the press. Another movie feature was that people with AIDS were invited as extras. In total, about 50 people contributed to the court scenes, where the main character tried to achieve justice. Unfortunately, by the time the film was released and a few months later, most of them had succumbed to the disease. For these people, their participation sent an important message, a way to make their own contribution to the fight against the stigma they each faced. Despite the difficulties, Philadelphia was a huge success, grossing $206 million at the box office. It received good reviews for Hank's performance, as well as numerous nominations. Among them were 4 Oscar nominations, 2 of which it won: Best Original Song and Best Actor. Tom finally got the desired statuette. The significance of the role was promising. After Philadelphia, society began to actively discuss the topic of AIDS. The film became a catalyst for the development of new projects on the topic, education and awareness, emphasizing the importance of social attention and the fight against the disease. Former HIV doctor Marla Gold believed that the film was very effective in educating the uninformed about what AIDS was. We have a major star playing a significant role with a visual for HIV, acted out beautifully as a movie that's award-winning, so this is a lot different than a pamphlet that arrives in the mail and warns you of something. This is real, she said. 1994 not only cemented Hank's status as a young and promising star, but also gave audiences a film that is still admired and quoted to this day. Forrest Gump is a man with autism spectrum disorder whose life unfolds against the backdrop of America in the second half of the 20th century and who tries to find happiness. Despite his developmental disabilities and the ridicule of others, Forrest managed to become an outstanding ping pong player, a hero of the Vietnam War, a millionaire, and a role model. Having received an Oscar for his work, Hanks became the second actor, after Spencer Tracy, to receive this award twice in a row. And there was another, not very obvious bonus.
My buttocks, as Forrest would say, were as firm as tinned hams. They were just...
But it wasn't just Tom's performance that was noted. Robert Zemeckis' hit was a stunning box office success, earning $678 million and winning 6 Oscars, including Best Picture and Best Actor. And the film brought the actor wide fame and made him a world-class star. You might be surprised to learn that Tom was not the first choice for the role of Forrest Gump. Initially, the author of the original novel, Winston Groom, saw a completely different actor, John Goodman, in the role of the good-natured Gump. Zemeckis considered Bill Paxton, who was rejected by the studio as not being well-known enough. In addition, Bill Murray, Harry Anderson, Chevy Chase, and John Travolta were considered for the lead role, but for various reasons they turned down the role. Tom himself, having received the role, remained in doubt. He later admitted that he was unsure about how interesting the story and his character would be to the world. He shared this with the director. I say, "Hey Bob, I got a question for you. Is anybody going to care about this movie? This guy sitting on a thing in these goofy shoes and this cuckoo suit with a suitcase full of Curious George books and stuff like that. Are we doing anything here that is going to make any sense to anybody?" He recalled in one of his interviews. By the way, speaking of that scene on the bench, the famous phrase,
My name's Forrest Gump. Do you want a chocolate?
was invented by Tom himself, deviating from the original script. His confidence was also boosted by his acquaintance with the scriptwriter Eric Roth. Tom was already familiar with one of his works, The Postman, and was delighted with it. And so, when he was later offered a role based on Roth's script, he thought about it, but agreed. I got Eric's script, and it was a rocket. Reading a script is usually as exciting as reading a boilerplate legal document, so when you read one that makes you feel as if you're seeing the movie, you know it's something different. The actor recalled. There were also plenty of difficulties in the work. During filming, the actor fell ill with the flu. He approached the director with this problem, to which he received the following answer. They told me, that's too bad you've got the flu. We're sorry to hear that, Tom. We're sorry because you got a whole lot of running to do today. Run. He smiled. Yeah, that was tough, adding, well, show up and be on time. That's my motto. The efforts paid off in full. The film earned Tom $40 million. Quotes from the film are still very popular around the world. However, they say don't ask Hanks to say the phrase about a box of chocolates again. He won't like this request. Now he could choose only the most interesting job offers. It's not surprising that the films that followed would be called the best in Tom's career. One of them, Apollo 13, tells about a dramatic moment in human space exploration. The actor plays the lead role in it, James Lovell, a real astronaut who participated in the moon landing missions. Later, Lovell, together with space journalist Jeffrey Kluger, published the book Lost Moon, which will be used as the basis for Apollo 13. Directed by Ron Howard, the story reveals the failed lunar mission of a spacecraft, which turned into one of the most dramatic events in space exploration. Howard tried to show the story as believably as possible and accurately revealed the plot according to the original. Thus, the scenes on the ship were filmed in conditions of real weightlessness in a laboratory plane during a flight along a parabolic trajectory. The plane cabin was equipped with exact copies of the Apollo 13 spacecraft cabins. But the famous line, "Houston, we have a problem," is not entirely true. What was actually said was, "Okay, Houston, we have a problem here," which was changed for dramatic effect. During the actual film production, things weren't that serious.
There was a moment where we were all in our space helmets, right? And all we could hear was on the radio was Ron Howard and each other. And if you heard the jokes and the humor that went down when we knew we were so private we could say anything under our breath, it would have been quite X-rated a couple of times.
For Tom, participation in the film had a special meaning. After all, the actor's great passion for the topic of cosmology, which began after Kubrick's film, played a role here. The affection was reinforced by the memory of the first landing on the moon in 1969. After all, back then, he skipped school to watch programs about Apollo, peered into the night sky hoping to find fixed points. One of Tom's most vivid memories is of the Milky Way, which he first saw on his relative's farm. There was no moon and there were no lights anywhere. And there it was, gorgeous. And it didn't make me feel small at all, he recalled. I'd try to call my mom or dad to come and see, but they didn't care. Oh, is that on again? They were too busy with their own miserable lives. Even at school, no one was paying attention. I had like an individual, one-on-one relationship with what was going on up there. The actor has several telescopes at home, and from time to time, he gathers his family to observe the planets. It is therefore not surprising that when he was asked what kind of film he wanted to make, he chose Apollo 13. Despite the fact that the studios were skeptical about the idea, his role as astronaut Jim Lovell was to set the tone for the second half of his career. And Tom began his path to this image by studying the biographies of outstanding astronauts, including Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin. They were not just brave, they were experts. I've talked to a lot of people that went up into space, both from that day and present day, and all of them have some version of the line, "I just thought it'd be a really cool job." So it was not a matter of hero worship. I was worshiping the history that was being made, he said. In addition, the director invited astronaut David Scott as a technical consultant. During the filming, the actors had to spend 13 days in zero gravity. The kind of training at home was sitting in a pool with pants stuffed with bricks and a tube from a garden hose. I wanted to be doing a service in zero gravity of outer space and also hearing the heavy breaths through the garden hose because that was as close as I could get to the tactile feeling of being in space, he would explain. The effort was worth it. The film more than recouped its budget, earning $355 million in Universal recognition. Among them, 4 Golden Globe nominations, 9 Oscar nominations, 5 BAFTA nominations. That same year, the actor tried his hand at voicing Sheriff Woody in the animated film Toy Story, which was a new experience for him.
You are a toy!
In 1996, Tom first tried himself as a screenwriter and director, releasing the musical comedy drama That Thing You Do, which tells the story of the career twists and turns of a fictional musical band from the 60s. The actor had been hatching this script for a long time. Even while working on Forrest Gump, Hanks began to take an interest in little-known bands from the 60s, combining his knowledge and writing it down on paper. But it didn't work out quickly. This stuff has to go into a crockpot for a long time, Hanks says. I'd written before, but never ended up with a cohesive screenplay that worked. The debut was a success. Although the film earned slightly more than its production budget, it received a lot of positive reviews and nominations for the Oscar, Golden Globe, and Satellite Awards for Best Original Song. I loved making that movie. I loved writing it. I loved being with it. I love all the people in it. When it came out, it was completely dismissed by the first wave of Vox Populi. It didn't do great business. It hung around for a while, was viewed as being some sort of odd, kind of quasi ripoff of 9 other different movies, and a nice little stroll down memory lane. The actor himself considers his work underrated. According to Hanks, the film was simply released at the wrong time and could have had great success much later. The argument was that the fact that the publications that initially did not accept the film eventually recognized it as a cult classic. After a short break of 2 years, Hanks returned to the screens and again with a hit, a film that would later be included in the National Film Registry of the United States, which are considered to have a national, historical, or aesthetic heritage. And if you haven't guessed it yet, we're talking about the war drama Saving Private Ryan. Steven Spielberg assembled a whole team of stars. Besides Tom, the main cast included Tom Sizemore, Edward Burns, Jeremy Davis, Vin Diesel. All of them were forced to undergo serious military training to participate in the filming. They created a special boot camp where the actors had to both train and live. This was done so that the actors could get used to their roles as much as possible, and they were trained by a U.S. Marine captain. The entire daily routine required them to get up at 5 in the morning, eat soldiers' food, and conduct training regardless of the weather and conditions. Now, we probably got a couple hours of sleep every night, Hank said. It was very cold, and we were up, and yeah, we did throw up and things like that, and guys started getting sick, but we also learned tactics and we learned history. We learned that even though you're tired, you can walk an extra couple miles, and even though you want to go to sleep, you can stay up till 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. The Ryan family story was based on a real story. Screenwriter Robert Rodat came up with the basic plot of the rescue after learning about the Nalon family, who lost 2 sons during World War II, and their struggle to save their last son, who was eventually reluctantly recalled home by the War Department.
You want to explain the math of this to me? I mean, where's the sense in risking the lives of the 8 of us to save one guy?
20 degrees. Anybody want to answer that?
Driver, think about the poor bastard's mother.
Hey, Doc, I got a mother, all right? I mean, you got a mother, Sarge has got a mother. I mean, shit, I bet even the captain's got a mother.
Tom, who got the role of Captain John Miller, was initially reluctant to take on the job. He did not want to ruin his relationship with Spielberg, whom he considered a good friend. I've seen friendships that ended because of a bad movie-making experience, and I was really reluctant to do it because of that. The actor explained, "His fears were not illogical, although in the end everything worked out well. Yes, we're still speaking," he admitted later. "There were a couple of tense moments when we might have questioned each other's judgment, but we got through it." One such moment was the controversy over Hank's image, and his reputation as a good guy played a cruel joke on him here. Spielberg did not want Tom's character to kill an opponent in the film, and the actor had to resist the established stereotype even at the level of colleagues. I told him, "I'm sorry, Steven, you're not going to get me all the way over here and turn me into some other guy just because you don't want to see Tom Hanks kill soldiers." There was another internal conflict, this time within Tom himself. Even after such a long journey, he was not entirely sure he deserved such high-profile roles. I still have moments when I think, they want me to play this role? They want me to be Captain John Miller in Saving Private Ryan? Never in my wildest scenarios would I have thought I'd be able to have enough of somebody's confidence to do such a thing. He later recalled, "After reading the script, Hanks tried to understand his character by feeling his fear. He tried to sense how scared Captain John Miller was. His fear is the reason for everything he does, and all the questions that are answered in the movie come back to that core thing," he explained. And the overall work could not help but be intense given the scale. The film's costs were enormous, $70 million, which was explained by the large number of extras used for the work. About 1,000 people participated in the Omaha Beach landing episode alone. Of the 59 days it took to shoot the film, 29 were spent only on the opening sequence, which lasts 23 minutes. To accommodate the trucks carrying the necessary equipment, many access roads were built from scratch. Associate producer Mark Huffam told the Irish Independent in 2006, "We wired off about 1 kilometer of beach in total for the scene. Steven just has a way of making these things work. He'll always find a way." The filming was psychologically difficult. Later, the actor would recall that he had a literal, tangible sense of what was happening during the work, despite the fact that computer graphics were used in the epic episodes. The tension and breakdown that his character had to face left impressions for years to come. Spielberg did not skimp on depicting the entire realism of what was happening, honestly conveying to the viewer the entire reality of the war. This had an immediate impact on the cast. The intense training in the military camp led to some of the actors almost refused to participate in the filming. When Tom told the director about the situation, Spielberg decided that Hanks, as the team captain, should find a way out on his own and trusted him. To inspire the team and instill faith in them, the actor said, "You owe it to these people you're representing on film to get this right. And in order to get it right, you've got to experience some of what they experienced." And it helped. Despite the difficulties, the whole team was then eagerly awaiting the film release. We had shot Saving Private Ryan in Ireland and in England, and it was a very, very tactile experience for all of us. It was an uncomfortable movie to make, but we couldn't wait to get to work every day. He would say, "The movie was a huge success, earning $482 million and becoming the most profitable film of the year. The picture won 5 Academy Awards for Best Director, Cinematography, Sound Editing, and Sound Editing. Hanks himself was nominated for an Oscar, Golden Globe, BAFTA, Screen Actors Guild Award, MTV Movie and TV Awards, but did not win any." Not changing traditional practice, Tom appeared in a rom-com in 1998, returning to work with Nora Ephron and Meg Ryan. You've Got Mail became another gem in the careers of 2 famous actors and was loved by both viewers and critics. Simultaneously, that same year, he founded the production company Playtone, which was aimed at developing TV series on topics that were interesting to the actor. The history of space exploration, the birth of America, World War II. Thanks to its work, viewers can watch such films as Castaway, Magnificent Desolation, Walking on the Moon 3D, Starter for 10, Where the Wild Things Are, and many more. Soon, Tom returned to his role in Toy Story 2 and also donned the uniform of a prison guard. And also that we can once again experience a storm of emotions while watching the actors in another iconic work, Frank Darabont's drama, The Green Mile. The film became an adaptation of the novel of the same name by Stephen King, telling about the acquaintance of prison guard Paul Edgecombe, Tom Hanks, and the unjustly sentenced to death Michael Clark Duncan, whose meeting is filled with struggle, hope, and supernatural events.
What did you just do to me?
According to Darabont, it was Tom he saw in the role of Edgecombe when he wrote the script, and he was very lucky that the actor agreed. Hanks himself accepted the offer to star in The Green Mile as a tribute to the director whose film he'd previously refused to star in. Stephen King was overjoyed when Darabont mentioned Tom Hanks when talking about the role of Paul Edgecombe. The famous writer believed that the actor was perfect for the role, like an old shoe. And he was right. Although Tom was not very pleased with the fact that both the story itself and its interpretation distorted reality. Here's the best example, he says. Stephen King, for good or bad, gave our characters sidearms. Now, I don't think you're going to have loaded weapons anywhere within the reach of a number of inmates. The prison uniforms were also not true to life, especially the hats, which were not worn by prison guards in 1936. But all this was necessary to enhance the visual impression. Tom actively defended the idea with the hats, despite the fact that the film crew was not thrilled. But the hats are really important because when they're on, that means a guard is officially on duty, and when they're off, things are relaxed a little bit. They were this intangible signal to everybody of when they've got to shape up and fly right and when they don't. Despite the fact that the film received mixed reviews after its release, it's called one of the most emotional and dramatic in the actor's career. The film was accused of dragging out the plot and the story of the main characters. There were disputes and misunderstandings regarding the film ending, but in general, The Green Mile was recognized as a masterpiece. On the aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film has a rating of 78% based on 134 critical reviews. Roger Ebert gave the film a rating of 3.5 stars out of 4, noting that the film length in this case is an advantage, not a disadvantage. In the new century, Tom's popularity remained just as high. And another successful shot was the adventure drama Castaway by Robert Zemeckis, which was remembered by viewers for the story of Chuck Nolan, a FedEx systems analyst who ended up on a desert island. The actor not only played the lead role, but also again took on the role of the film's producer, which became a very successful start for further successful projects. But let's get back to Castaway. Tom got the idea by accident. An article told about FedEx planes that fly across the Pacific Ocean without stopping. The company's slogan, which at that time sounded like "the world on time," seemed very significant to Hanks in the context of his idea to rethink the story of Robinson Crusoe. And that's the theme of the movie, its connection in the world and disconnection from everything. He explained.
So you missed the last truck by 2 minutes?
2 minutes. Actually, it was less than that.
Well, the plane wasn't that heavy. You could have added some fuel and picked up the speed and made up the time.
No, but it's about the trucks. Today's truck was 2 minutes late. Tomorrow's will be 4 minutes late, and then 6 minutes late, and 8 minutes late. Next thing you know, we're the U.S. Mail.
Teaming up with his friend, Apollo 13 screenwriter William Broyles, the actor worked hard on the idea for the film. The title was originally planned to be humorous, Chuck of the Jungle, but Hanks says the storyline he envisioned was always dead serious, almost metaphysical. Take a modern man and strip him of everything: food, water, shelter, even the ability to tell time. The experimental nature of the project was obvious. One man, one island, and no action. Was there a risk of ending up a box office flop? Of course. It's a huge risk, and part of it is, well, why do it if it's not a huge risk? Why go through all this stuff? The whole movie itself is, I think, bodaciously treading new territory. The studio was very nervous. The entire storyline was about Tom and his ability to convey his character's inner changes and experiences. There were no supporting characters, no dialogue. It got to the point where Fox was calling Broyles in panic because they realized they'd spent 9 figures on a story about a guy talking to a volleyball. By the way, the ball, Chuck's companion Wilson, beloved by the audience, appeared in the plot completely by accident. When Broyles went to a nearly deserted island in the Mexican Sea to independently go through the main character's path, he saw a volleyball which washed up on the shore. Put some seashells on it, and I started talking to it. I totally went Kurtz, jokes Broyles, referring to Heart of Darkness's madman. Before filming began, the actor had to mess with his weight again and again, 50 pounds, to show his character changing in the process. Imagine, filming was stopped for a whole year, during which Tom not only lost weight but also grew facial hair. The actor had to stick to a strict diet, and he achieved his goal, to look as emaciated as possible. When asked what the hardest part of the diet was, he answered, without hesitation, "Oh, those FFs, man. Those fries from France. The only thing I did not give up was coffee." Nope, wasn't about to. Can't do it. Excuse me, no I'm not. Ain't gonna happen, pal. To be fair, this had another side. Constantly fluctuating weight led to health problems, and Tom was subsequently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. There was another problem. During filming, the actor cut his leg and the wound became infected with a staph infection. The situation was so serious that Tom was hospitalized, and work on the film was suspended for several weeks. By the way, FedEx was happy to take part in the project. They provided access to their facilities in Memphis, Los Angeles, provided their car and uniform. Moreover, the head of the company even made a cameo at the end of the movie. Throughout the work on the film, Tom was afraid that the idea wouldn't work and wouldn't gain popularity. That's what we said every day. This might not work. I think that's probably the great fear we have with Castaway, because people are like, I understand you're on this island and you don't talk and it's just you and you don't do anything for an hour? And I'm like, well, 2/3 of that is true, but that last third where I don't do anything? Are you kidding? I fight for my life for an hour, the actor recalled. But Hank's fears were not justified. Castaway not only grossed more than $400 million at the box office, but also received a lot of positive reviews from critics. The actor's sacrifice was justified. For his role, he received a Golden Globe for Best Actor and was also nominated for an Oscar in the same category. Tom returned to work only 2 years later, and in a rather unusual project for a good guy. Sam Mendes's crime drama Road to Perdition, where he played one of the lead roles, Michael Sullivan, a gangster forced to work for the mafia to feed his family. The character's life changes dramatically after his eldest son accidentally witnesses a murder. The work cannot be called super successful, but it was well received by the audience and recouped the production budget. The actor continued to master the producer's chair with the romantic comedy My Big Fat Greek Wedding, where, however, he did not get a single part. And all because he was waiting for a job that would become one of the most high-profile in the actor's career. FBI agent Carl Hanratty, who will be chasing Leonardo DiCaprio. Or more precisely, his character, the clever swindler Frank Abagnale. The story was staged by Steven Spielberg on a script that came from his pen and is based on supposedly true events. In fact, much of what is told in the film is artistic freedom of thought. Of course, this film is loved and appreciated not for the reality of the story, but for the brilliant duet that Hanks and DiCaprio created.
You sure about that, Carl?
I'll tell you what I am sure of. You're going to get caught. One way or another. It's a mathematical fact. It's like Vegas. The house always wins.
Thanks to Spielberg's efforts, Catch Me If You Can is more than just an entertaining film about a game of tag between the main characters. It explores the problem of parent-child relationships, the search for oneself in the world, the theme of redemption, and growing up. Initially, the director did not plan to take Tom for the role, but the latter had his own opinion on this matter. The actor decided to take his fate into his own hands. He called Spielberg and asked if he could play in this film. I really know who this guy is, Tom told the director. And then Tom called me and he said, can I kind of horn in here? And I said, my God, what do you mean horn in? Steven recalled. Tom then called DiCaprio, who was directly involved in all stages of production. Then he called Leo and said, is it an imposition for me to be in this movie, which is clearly your film? I mean, you're carrying it. Would it be an imposition upon you if I played the FBI agent? Leo thought that heaven had just come down to earth for him. So in a sense, Tom invited himself into the project in such a humble, beautiful way. The main actors quickly became friends, and the chemistry and banter carried over into the filmmaking process. Needless to say, the film was a masterpiece. It received a ton of rave reviews from both viewers and critics, earning a 9 out of 10 rating on aggregator websites. Having disappeared from the screens for another 2 years, Tom appeared in 5 projects at once in 2004. The Lady Killers, a black comedy in which the Coen brothers both wrote and directed, was quite weak. It's considered one of the most unsuccessful in both their careers and Tom's. The actor got one of the lead roles, Professor Goldthwait Dorr. Dorr assembles a team for a major robbery, and everything was supposed to be fine if not for a pious and smart old lady in their way. But the film can only be considered a failure in appearance. Despite the fact that the film failed at the American box office, there were those who saw Hank's real talent in the role of the swindler Dorr. He was able to abstract from the cliches of standard American crime comedies and show a double-faced character.
There you have it. It is on your table, Ms. Monson. The awful truth.
Stolen money.
But find the victim, Ms. Monson. I challenge you. Even the casino itself, that riparian Gomorrah, shall suffer no harm. It has an insurance company.
It's also unclear why the actor appeared in the low-budget comedy Elvis Has Left the Building and produced the failed music comedy Connie and Carla. All this can be forgiven, after all. In the same year, he appeared in 2 images, a lost political fugitive and a multifaceted character. Steven Spielberg's The Terminal is hard to overestimate. The story of an immigrant who's stuck in a New York airport and forced to live there was partly based on a true story. Iranian refugee Mehran Karimi lived in Paris's Charles de Gaulle airport for 18 years until he was transferred for health reasons. Spielberg reportedly paid Karimi $275,000 for the rights to film his story. Why did he take it on? According to the director himself, after working on Catch Me If You Can, he wanted to make a film that could make us laugh and cry and feel good about the world. Despite the prototype, the film is not a biographical one. Only the idea itself was taken from the original story, and all the details and facts were changed. As a role model for the character, Hanks took his Bulgarian father-in-law, who, according to the actor, could speak different languages, including Russian, Polish, and Turkish. His image formed the basis. Except for the last 5 minutes, the shooting did not take place in the airport terminal itself. Spielberg rented a hangar at the airport and built a real replica of the Palmdale terminal in California there, including branded stores and even a full-size Hamilton advertisement. The 3-story space helped him better control all the shooting processes and convey the atmosphere of the main character's stay as realistically as possible. No less atmospheric was The Polar Express by Robert Zemeckis. Unusual in its idea, the computer-animated film was based on the children's book of the same name by Chris von Allsburg. But it's difficult to call it completely childish, since it reveals many socially significant topics. Tom was especially lucky here because he got as many as 5 roles, or rather, their voice acting, from the conductor to Santa Claus. In addition, he had to sacrifice his body since a motion capture camera was used to convey movements and emotions, a fan of which Zemeckis is.
And action! Your attention, please. Are there any Polar Express passengers in need of refreshment?
Surprisingly, the director initially offered Tom to play all the roles, to which the actor quipped asking, should he play the female characters and each elf separately? He tried to voice each role, gradually moving from one to another. There's only so much that I can internally grasp as an actor, and on the day of tests that we did, I played 5 or 6 or 7 roles in the course of that day, and I said, Bob, I'm exhausted here, he recalled. In the end, they settled on 5. And although Hanks was not thrilled with the number of characters he was entrusted with, he still agreed to participate in the filming. All because the actor was very inspired by the original, which became an important part of Christmas for him. It was ridiculously challenging, but in a very, very good way, Tom admitted. Despite the Polar Express criticism, mostly aimed at the animation implementation, the characters were criticized for its uncanny valley visuals, with many critics being particularly unnerved by the lifeless eyes of the movie's main characters. The film has become a classic of Christmas cinema. On aggregator websites, it has earned an average rating of 6 out of 10, with the general consensus being, quote, though the movie is visually stunning overall, the animation for the human characters isn't lifelike enough, and the story is padded. Moreover, The Polar Express received several nominations, including an Oscar, a Golden Globe, and an Emmy, winning the latter for Best Original Song. In general, children's content gradually takes a prominent place in the actor's career. 2 years later, in 2006, he was engaged in 2 projects aimed at a young audience. He voiced the character Woody Carr in the cartoon Cars and produced the cartoon The Ant Bully by John A. Davis. He also acts as a producer in the British teen comedy Starter for 10, which, although a box office flop, received good reviews from critics. But soon, Hanks gives reason to talk about himself again. The new subject of controversy was the film adaptation of Dan Brown's works, The Da Vinci Code. In it, he got the lead role, of course, Dr. Robert Langdon.
Professor Langdon, do not react to this message. You must follow my directions very closely, and above all, reveal nothing to Captain Fash. You're in grave danger.
In the first film of the trilogy, Langdon is accused of murder, and together with a local cryptographer, played by Audrey Tautou, searches for the truth and a way to get rid of the crime accusations. Along the way, the viewers revealed such secrets as the wedding of Christ and Mary Magdalene, the church conspiracy, a certain priory of Sion, and the search for the Holy Grail, which turns out not to be a cup at all. At the time of their release, Dan Brown's novels became a literary hit and enjoyed enormous popularity, revealing certain secrets associated with early Christianity and targeting the doubting class. Despite the fact that the original works were refuted, they took their place as quite good reading. With the film adaptation, things were more complicated. The film has sparked a wave of criticism from Catholic and Orthodox organizations for allegedly insulting the Holy Scriptures. In a number of countries, such as India, Egypt, and China, the film was banned from showing. But this did not prevent the thriller from grossing $758 million at the box office, of which $150 million was invested in the sequel. Hanks' fee alone was $51 million. The negative feedback from the Vatican only increased the attention, but the creators still listened to the clergy, and therefore the church was presented in a more favorable light in the next part. The script adjustments played against the production. While there was hype, the secret history worked, but as soon as the Vatican called the sequel Angels and Demons harmless entertainment, the audience's interest noticeably dropped. If The Da Vinci Code grossed $758 million in theaters, then the sequel's box office was already $486 million, and the third part, Inferno, brought the creators $220 million. For Hanks himself, appearing in the Brown adaptations was just a commercial venture, calling sequels bullshit and the Da Vinci Code nonsense. In a recent interview, the actor called Ron Howard's trilogy as cynical as a crossword puzzle and an outrageous adventure story ripe for box office success. And if initially the story about Langdon was just good commercial business, then during the filming of the third film, it became clear that this is not such a good commercial activity, Tom recalled. I mean, author Dan Brown, God bless him, says, "Here's a sculpture and a place in Paris. No, it's way over there. See how a cross is formed on a map? Well, it's sort of a cross. Those are delightful scavenger hunts that are about as accurate to history as the James Bond movies are to espionage. All we were doing is promising a diversion." The next few years after the release of the Da Vinci Code were not prominent in the actor's career. It seemed as if he'd run out of steam and decided to take a break. No, he still appeared on screens, for example in a cameo in the Simpsons movie, and directed the films Mamma Mia, City of Ember, and My Life in Ruins. And apart from Mamma Mia, these projects can hardly be called successful. The only major role of this period was in Mike Nichols' biographical drama Charlie Wilson's War. In it, the actor is Texas Congressman Charles Wilson, who organized the financing of a secret CIA operation to supply weapons to Afghan mujahideen in the war against the Soviet troops. His partner in the filming was the beautiful Julia Roberts. By the way, if you're interested in the biography of the Hollywood beauty, follow the link. It was the film's focus, a highly realistic depiction of Russia and the US's role in the tug of war during the Afghan War, that did the film a disservice. In America, this topic did not receive much response from viewers. In Russia, the film was completely removed from the screening, since the activities of the Soviet troops were not shown in a good light. The audience was especially sensitive to the topic of the fight of Soviet soldiers against Afghan children with the help of cleverly hidden mines and the terrible execution of local residents. The film barely recouped its production costs. At the same time, it earned several awards. Among them were 5 Golden Globe nominations, including 1 for Best Actor for Tom Hanks. Then came not very successful romantic comedies, voice acting in the cartoons, Toy Story spin-offs, Small Fry, Partysaurus Rex, and participation in dramatic projects. One of the controversial films was the sensational Cloud Atlas created by Tom Tykwer and the Wachowski sisters, based on the novel the same name by Dave Mitchell. The plot turned out to be very unusual. 6 separate stories that are connected ideologically and symbolically. The actor plays several roles in the film, changing age, race, and even gender. Each of the 6 intertwined stories takes place in a different era and suggests images of completely different genres.
Nay, this life of rotted luck ain't no smiley Samyani. And rare's time I ever fessed the secret of Slucha's Hallow. Adam, my bro by law, and his son and me be trekking back from Honokaa Market.
The script was very risky. Even the actor understood this, saying that it would be difficult to sell it to both the studio and the audience. The script was not user-friendly. He told The New Yorker in 2012. The demands it put on the audience, the business risk, were off the scale. And so it happened. Warner Bros. Initially agreed to back the project, but after the failure of another fantasy, The Fountain, they withdrew their support. And this was at the very moment when the Wachowski sisters were heading to Hanks' office to offer him one of the leading roles. Like in slow motion, Lena recalled, "I was thinking, it's dead. And here's Tom Hanks, whom we have to convince to be in our movie that is now dead. It was like, hi, welcome to our sinking ship." Tom Hanks' name certainly saved the day. It didn't take much convincing. The Wachowskis and Hanks had a common interest, a Kubrick poster for 2001 that hung in Hanks' office, and the fact that Hanks was halfway through Moby Dick, which the Wachowskis had read and reread. By the way, besides Tom, there were many other big names. Halle Berry, Jim Broadbent, Hugo Weaving, Hugh Grant, and others. Despite the fact that Cloud Atlas would become a box office failure, and in the opinion of many fans of the film, an underrated masterpiece of the Wachowskis, Hanks himself calls the movie one of his best films. The sci-fi epic became one of his favorites in his career.
And that was the first time I had ever shot extensively in Germany, and I was surrounded by history. But the work itself we were part of this big, massive ensemble of fantastic people who were just trying to do the hardest, best work on this, deep throw. I always say, as Kenny Stapleton said, throw deep, baby. That whole movie was such a deep throw that making it was magical.
After The Matrix release, the Wachowskis were expected to make another hit, and for many, the story of reincarnation and finding the meaning of life was a disappointment. Some saw it as the next masterpiece. Roger Ebert was one of those people, giving the film 4 stars out of 4. Oh, what a film this is, and what a demonstration of the magical, dreamlike qualities of the cinema, and what an opportunity for the actors, and what a leap by the directors who free themselves from the chains of narrative continuity. He wrote in his review, the actor himself was hurt by this failure. He'd bet too much on the story, considering it amazing, and afterwards he had a hard time surviving the failure. Oh, I'd go through horrible doldrums. I've made an awful lot of movies that didn't make any sense and didn't make any money, but that doesn't alter the work that goes into it, or even what your opinion of it is. This period also includes many biographical works of the actor where he acted both as an actor and as a producer. Unfortunately, Parkland, a film about the events after the assassination of American President John Kennedy, failed at the box office and received mostly negative reviews. But Captain Phillips and Saving Mr. Banks, biographical films that were released in 2013, were warmly received by both critics and audiences. In Captain Phillips, Tom has the lead role as the captain of the MV Maersk Alabama, an American merchant mariner who's taken hostage by Somali pirates. The film was based on the memoirs of the real Captain Phillips, who wrote them shortly after his release. The rights to film it were immediately bought by Columbia Pictures, which put Oscar nominee Paul Greengrass in the director's chair. Greengrass saw only Tom Hanks in the lead role. Initially, the actor was not too eager to star in the film, but Matt Damon, who's been the actor's close friend, persuaded him to do so. And he was right. Working with the director turned out to be successful and intense. Besides the real ships that were used in the filming, Greengrass used a special technique so that the actors experienced real emotions on camera, and therefore Tom was not introduced to the actors who played the pirates. When the actors saw the pirates in the scene for the first time, he got goosebumps. It was tense. We were scared in the kind of like the best way possible because we know the guns aren't loaded, but those guys were. So when they came in, I have to say that when they first blew that door open and came in screaming at us, I saw 4 of the skinniest, scariest human beings on the planet. And the hair did stand up on the back of our heads, and it was chaotic. The film clearly relied on the authenticity of the original memoirs and used Somali actors and accurately described the pirates' attack techniques. But in the end, the entire main storyline, the heroism of Hank's Captain Phillips, turned out to be false. Thus, after the movie release, some of the crew members of the MV Maersk Alabama stated that the scenes described in the film did not correspond to reality. According to their version, the ship's crew was in danger precisely because of the captain's overconfident and careless actions. The lawsuit filed by some of them caused a scandal around the film, but this, on the contrary, had a positive effect on its distribution. Interest in the true story fueled audiences, and the movie ultimately became a huge success, grossing over $200 million. Captain Phillips received 6 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Supporting Actor for Abdi. On review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes, the film holds an approval rating of 93% based on 282 reviews, with an average rating of 8.3 out of 10. The website's critical consensus reads, "Smart, powerfully acted, and incredibly intense, Captain Phillips offers filmgoers a Hollywood biopic done right. It offers Tom Hanks a showcase for yet another brilliant performance." Some called this role a new peak in the actor's career. Saving Mr. Banks, in turn, tells us a story based on real events. The famous Walt Disney tries to persuade the intractable writer Pamela Linda Travers to film her story about Mary Poppins. The main roles were shared between Tom and Emma Thompson, whose duet was received very warmly by both viewers and critics. The film received good reviews and a lot of nominations, including the Golden Globe and Satellite Awards. Hanks was not overlooked at the latter in the Best Supporting Actor category. In 2015, Tom appeared in 2 projects, the war thriller Bridge of Spies by Steven Spielberg and the simple, according to viewers, tragic drama Ithaca, where the director and leading actress was Meg Ryan. Hanks got 3 little episodes there, and those were wordless. Spielberg's historical drama Bridge of Spies continued the actor's series of serious works. The film was also based on real events. This time, the viewer meets Tom in the role of lawyer James Donovan, who tries to save the life of artist Rudolph Abel, accused of spying for the USSR. The role of Abel went to Mark Rylance.
You've never asked me if the charges were true. If I am indeed a spy.
Several people participated in writing the script, including British playwright Matt Charman, and the famous Coen brothers, who became interested in the project and decided to make their own edits to the plot. For example, they added dynamics to the scene with the exchange of prisoners on that famous bridge, which once connected East and West Berlin. Hanks gives a very satisfying, watchable, and assured performance with just the right amount of hokum, homely, and while is judiciously balanced proportions. Peter Bradshaw wrote about the actor in his review, from which we can conclude that Tom tries not to lose his positive image, regardless of the role. The image extends not only to films and roles in them. Fans all over the world are sure, and you most likely too, Tom Hanks is the kindest person on the planet. Write in the comments whether you agree with this statement, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new interesting videos. And let's continue. If you Google the actor, you will inevitably get stories about Tom's altruism and other virtues in the eyes of the public. Funny, handsome, without being over the top or flashy, it's no wonder he was immediately loved. And of course, smart. And when Reader's Digest conducted a poll in 2013 to find out who is among the 100 most trusted people in America, Tom Hanks took first place. The actor's been named the favorite actor in the United States several times by the Harris poll. The star often helps people around him and simply does nice things for others. At the same time, the help is often not advertised, and the media finds out about its existence through third parties. Thus, it's known that Tom participated in raising funds for the victims of the fires that occurred in Greece in 2018. In addition, he provided targeted assistance to a disabled marathon athlete who completed a round-the-world run. One day in 2015, Hanks saw a Girl Scout table. Not only did he buy a few boxes and donate an extra $20, he also offered his celebrity status to a good cause. Specifically, he offered selfies to passerby in exchange for cookies. That same year, he found a young woman's college ID in a park and used his Twitter account to track her down and return it to her. Tom often buys lunch at his own expense for customers of fast food cafes when he's there with his family. Together with Paul McCartney, he took part in charity Shakespeare readings. All proceeds from the evening were transferred to youth and veteran funds. Well, how can we ignore the sensational situation here? For example, the internet has long discussed a photo of Hanks with newlyweds when the actor accidentally got into their photo shoot while jogging in Central Park. In an interview with the Huffington Post, the photographer said that the runner was constantly in the camera lens and they had to wait for the man to leave the frame, but he was in no hurry to do so. The athlete took off his baseball cap and said, "Hi, I'm Tom Hanks." The actor kissed the bride's hand, congratulated the newlyweds, and then took a selfie which he later posted on Twitter. In March 2017, it was reported that Tom gave a coffee machine to journalists working in the White House. According to the actor, American media representatives are obliged to continue the fight for truth and justice without feeling thirsty. To the White House press corps, keep up the fight for truth, justice, and the American way, especially truth, Hanks wrote in a typewritten note. In addition, the actor has become known for his love of unusual cars. He regularly posts photos on social networks in which he allegedly buys or drives a new vehicle. In 2017, the internet was actively discussing a photo of the Hollywood celebrity in front of a UAZ 452 car, also known as a loaf. The actor published a corresponding post on Instagram. Quote, "I got a new truck. I'm going camping." Hanks captioned the photo. The actor himself is very happy with the fact that he's called a good guy. The actor does not think that his job is very different from any other field of activity. Apart from a certain glamour, it requires as much effort and diligence as any other. It's important to Tom that his image be realistic, but he also tries to follow the principles himself. "I try not to lie to people. The only way to control the way you're perceived is to tell the truth," he said during an interview with Oprah. Of course, everyone has their downsides. Tom calls his downside grumpiness, which is why his children suffer greatly.
Listen, I wish I had lived a life where people would truly fear me, but I've tried to come in like angry. I just make everybody laugh. So, me. Hey, let me get this straight. You're so funny. I can never get across that barrier.
Whether it's good or not, the actor always deviates from his image. Not long ago, social networks actively discussed a situation that did not fit into the standard. After all, the camera caught footage of Tom threatening his fan, clearly ready to move from threats to action. And all because after dinner in one of the New York restaurants, a crowd of fans were waiting for the actor and his wife. And nothing foreshadowed trouble, but one of them, intentionally or accidentally, hit Rita Wilson in the back with such force she almost fell. Furious Hanks entered into an altercation.
What are you doing? Back the off! What are y'all doing? What do you want to do? You want knock it over my wife!
But can we really say the actor has changed his image? After all, any loving husband would stand up for his beloved woman, especially since Rita is not just a wife for him. Tom Hanks is one of the few Hollywood icons who doesn't give the tabloids a chance to savor the details of his personal life. All you'll find on the internet is that he's a good husband and father. The only deviation from the ideal was his divorce from his first wife back in 1987, just when his career was actively gaining momentum. But the difficult financial period that preceded this success led to the collapse of the relationship. Regular scandals on financial grounds. Samantha's constant weekends without her husband and children, the instability greatly affected Tom's marriage, and eventually the couple decided to separate. Later, the artist recalled this union as very difficult from beginning to end. A new turn in his life was in his union with Rita Wilson. The couple met on the set of the show Bosom Buddies, but their relationship became closer only years later, or more precisely, on the set of the film Volunteers. But they say that Tom fell in love with Rita much earlier, at the age of 16, when he accidentally saw the actress in the sitcom The Brady Bunch and promised himself to win the heart of the beauty. We don't know if it's true or not. But since the couple got married in 1988, they have irritated all the paparazzi with their perfection. Rita waited for this moment for 3 years as the divorce process dragged on, and Tom proposed to her the day after he received the divorce papers. Detractors claim that the actor's devotion is explained by his wife's enormous influence on Tom. The actor is criticized for listening to his wife in everything and making decisions only after consulting her. He partly confirms this himself, publicly saying how much he owes his wife everything he has. I view my wife as my lover, and we have a bond that goes beyond words like wife or girlfriend or mother. For example, I was able to construct a number of things in Philadelphia because of my relationship with Rita. The way my character felt about his lover is the way I feel about mine. The same was true when I played Forrest Gump, who loved Jenny. Without my connection with Rita, I don't know how I would have been able to connect with what Forrest was going through. Tom does not deny he had to change and make certain compromises with himself for the sake of their relationship. Basically, like everyone else, over time their marriage became better thanks to the understanding that relationships need to be worked on. And for Hanks, Rita was only reachable in his second marriage, since by the time of their relationship, he had to grow up. The success of our relationship was a matter of timing, maturity, and our willingness to have an intimate connection. When I married Rita, I thought, this is going to require some change on my part. I won't deny that Providence was part of us finding each other, but our relationship isn't magic the way it's shown in movies, he says. In real life, our connection is as concrete as me sitting here. Not that marriage doesn't come close to being hell in a handbasket sometimes, but we both know that no matter what, we'll be with each other and we'll get through it. The couple leads a calm, ordinary, measured life, trying not to get caught on camera too often. For the sake of his wife, the actor converted to Orthodoxy and even became a trustee of the St. Sophia Cathedral of the Constantinople Patriarchate. Since Rita is Greek by origin, the couple often visits her homeland and even bought a house on the island of Antiparos, where they spend a summer. According to the Star, the spouses rarely quarrel, and their quarrels are mostly humorous when they argue about who loves their partner more. After the birth of their children, Rita devoted herself to her family, but she often helped Tom in his career. She studied scripts with him, gave advice. They regularly attend church, go to dinner, and try to raise their children, Truman Theodore and Chester Marlin, as simply as possible in their situation. According to the actor, they lived in a relatively modest house for a long time, given Tom's status and income, because they wanted the children to grow up in one place without moving. You don't want to fuck up the kids because, hey, guess what? We have a new boat in the driveway. The money was great, but both Rita and I have communicated to our kids that we really love what we do. We're doing it for the sheer ass pleasure, the actor explains. He does have something to compare it to, especially considering that the children from his first marriage saw a completely different reality, and Tom understands this. His older children experienced divorce and uncertainty while the younger ones grew up in wealth and privilege, but it was important to Hanks to raise them with the same attitude to the world and to life. My son Colin was born when I was very young, as well as my daughter, but that means we have this gestalt understanding because they remember when their dad was just a guy trying to, make the rent. He says, my other kids, they were born after I had established a beachhead in every way, and so their lives were just different. And if you ask Tom, his children are the most important experience in his life, as he says in various interviews. It isn't easy being a parent, not for any of us. Somewhere along the line, I figured out the only thing really I think eventually a parent can do is say, I love you. There's nothing you can do wrong. You cannot hurt my feelings. I hope you'll forgive me on occasion. And what do you need me to do? You offer that to them. I'll do anything I can possibly do in order to keep you safe. That's it. Offer that up and then just love them. But despite the external ideal, life did not leave the couple without trials. This included Tom's diabetes and Rita's breast cancer, which was diagnosed soon after. The actor put his career on hold at that time and, according to relatives, tried to support his wife as much as possible. He looked for the best doctors for Rita, took her to the best clinics, sparing neither effort nor time nor money. Fortunately, Wilson began to recover. Soon, other problems arose in the family. Tom and Rita's son Chet became addicted to illegal substances, which was a big blow to the couple, and they had to spend a lot of nerves and effort to persuade him to undergo rehabilitation. Successfully, by the way. All this only strengthened the couple's relationship, and despite the comments of ill wishers, they are still the same, laughing at night, loving and overcoming peaks. I said that I have a woman who teaches me what love is every day. Maybe that sentiment is possible to fake, but for me, it's really true. What makes me different from others is that I verbalize this stuff. Having turned 60, Tom continues to actively work. He appears on screen, produces new projects, writes scripts, voices cartoons, and even acts in music videos. 2016 brought him and viewers two production projects, My Big Fat Greek Wedding 2 and A Hologram for the King. In the latter, he also played the lead role. Tom Tyker's comedy drama is an interpretation and screen adaptation of Dave Eggers' novel and is aimed at revealing the complex personal and professional crisis of the main character. Alan Clay, a once successful businessman, has lost almost everything: his career, his wife, and confidence in who he is. Life gives him a chance to restore financial independence thanks to a big contract. He needs to sell a complex holographic teleconferencing system to the King of Saudi Arabia. Tom manages to portray his character's inner experiences in a soft and funny manner, sometimes showing the audience the full depth of his personal shifts. A Hologram for the King opens with a new greatest hits moment in Tom Hanks' acting history. This is how Nick Allen began his review, and he's right. Hanks' career will soon feature new major roles that will make people talk about him again. As for Hologram, it was received very warmly by both audiences and critics. Writing for the New York Times, Stephen Holden called the movie, quote, a story of confusion, perplexity, frustration, and panic, praising Tom Hanks' ability to turn it into an agreeably uncomfortable comedy, meriting a Critics' Pick designation. The film more than recouped its budget, earning $108 million, while costing $35 million. In addition, that year, the actor worked on a documentary film, California Typewriter, a project by Doug Nickel, dedicated to the mythical idea of the importance of a typewriter for summoning the creative spirit. Here, Tom played himself as one of the creative personalities obsessed with this theory. Inferno, which marked the end of the story about Robert Langdon, was also released. The most interesting project was a drama based on real events, which became common for this period of the actor's career. The biographical drama film by Clint Eastwood told viewers about an amazing event, Miracle on the Hudson, as it was later nicknamed. On that day, the commander of Flight Cactus 1549, Chesley Sullenberger, nicknamed Sully, made an emergency landing of the Airbus A320 on the cold waters of the Hudson River in New York. However, none of the 155 people on board died. Only this led to an investigation into an accident that almost cost the main character his career and led to a huge amount of bullying towards him. Chesley Sullenberger was played by Tom Hanks. The film was based on Sullenberger's own memoir, which he wrote sometime after the investigation. Although the film gravitates towards the original, Eastwood and Hanks gave themselves room to interpret the events creatively, especially in regard to the NTSB's brutal investigation. The service, by the way, was offended after the film's release, claiming that they were unfairly portrayed as evil, although they were doing their job, but it was a tribute to the drama. The free interpretation of events concerned not only the service work, but also the events that happened to the main character. In order to better understand his character and the events more deeply, Tom met Sully, who instructed him on the script.
Sully, and by the way, he walked me through the entire script saying, that's wrong, that didn't happen, no. And I said, that's great, Sully. I'm sorry, man, we're going to do all that stuff, and you just don't.
For the actor himself, the film was not just an entertaining narrative. It was a way to talk to the audience about important, serious things. Essentially, movies about grown-up people doing grown-up things and grown-up circumstances are not known to be big money makers. Now, they might make fine films, but big money making is the thing they're all on the lookout for, so therefore this might be a quiet little film that might be perfect for cable network, Lifetime. But then if Lifetime says no, oh my lord, what do you do? Where do you go when that happens? He commented on his choice. Eastwood was pleased with working with Hanks. Tom gave a definition of hero that I thought was spot on. It's someone who does something extraordinary, yet he doesn't think it's extraordinary. He might think, I was on my game that week, but it is extraordinary in our eyes. Sully, as the film was eventually named, was a huge success. It earned over $240 million and received a ton of positive reviews, earning an average rating of 8 out of 10 on the aggregator websites. It also received awards. In the year of its release, it was among the top 10 films of the year according to the U.S. National Board of Film Critics, and soon after it received nominations for an Oscar, a Satellite, and the Critics' Choice Movie Awards in 4 categories. Among them were Best Picture and Best Actor for Tom Hanks. Interestingly, Chesley Sullenberger himself did not remain in debt, and on the Jimmy Kimmel Show he portrayed Tom Hanks in a short interpretation of his life and career.
I'm Tom Hanks, and I'm going to be a big movie star.
Tom Hanks? That's not a movie star name.
Not yet.
In 2017, Tom starred together with Emma Watson in the film The Circle by James Ponsoldt. Based on the novel the same name by Dave Eggers, it reveals the seamy side of a multi-million-dollar technology corporation like Apple, which is trying to take over the data and souls of its users. The most interesting thing here is Tom's role as the antagonist. One of his few roles where he actually plays the bad guy, and it's one of the few really good moments in this movie, judging by the audience's reviews. The Circle was a flop. It received a lot of negative reviews, mainly criticizing the plot, the dynamics, and Ponsoldt's direction. Many called it banal and boring. The initially good idea was not carried through, although according to Matt Seitz, the brilliance of Hank's performance as Eamon Bailey, founder of The Circle, is that it's not remarkably different from the humble, charming average guy performance he gives as himself whenever he goes on talk shows, accepts awards, or narrates a documentary about the unsung heroes of World War II. In essence, the actor used his strengths and appeared in a new, unusual role for himself, which is what made him memorable. Tom himself considers his character both a villain and a hero, and the story is a foreshadowing of the future. Here we are 4 years later, and much of what he wrote about is, in fact, a fact. Hanks says. Critics disagreed with him. The movie is neither the sort of smart and edgy indie that A24 could market, nor a glossily entertaining commercial studio vehicle. It doesn't appeal directly to younger Watson fans or older Hank fans. Ann Thompson wrote about him in IndieWire. Hanks does not help matters in an overinflated supporting role as the amiably villainous co-founder of The Circle. He's too big for the room. His familiar stardom is distracting. Other reviewers were even less friendly, and The Circle was a box office bomb, barely breaking even on its budget. Steven Spielberg's The Post was more successful. This time, the charming Meryl Streep was his co-star. So what caused the film to eventually be banned in 14 Arab countries? The plot tells of some secret Pentagon files about the Vietnam War that fall into the hands of the main characters. In the story, Streep plays the role of Katharine Graham, publisher of the Washington Post, and Hanks plays the legendary editor, Ben Bradley. Both characters are forced to put their careers at risk in a fight with the government for the right to reveal unsightly secrets to the world. The work on the film was very active. When Spielberg got his hands on the script, he immediately began to find out if the 2 stars he needed were available. Realizing that he had a rare chance to snag Hanks and Streep for work, he immediately began filming. When I read the first draft of the script, it wasn't something that could wait 3 years or 2 years. This was a story I felt we needed to tell today, he recalled. The entire process took several months. From late May to August 2017, and during the voiceover of Nixon, they used real recordings of the president's conversations. In addition, the real Pentagon Papers, which are discussed in the film, also made it onto the set. It was important for Streep and Hanks to tell the world such a story.
The government trying to keep essentially the truth secret so that they could continue to obfuscate what was really going on the ground in Vietnam.
Spielberg's instincts were right. It would seem that the film would be interesting to viewers under 40, and how much do they know about the situation? It turned out that the director hit the nail on the head, playing on a topic that had long troubled society. Could the U.S. have won that war, and was there a place for them there? The film received a lot of rave reviews, a bunch of nominations, 2 for Oscar, 6 for Golden Globe, including a nomination for Best Actor and a drama for Tom Hanks. Punchy and quick-pulsed, it's a fine example of that now rare species, the big city newspaper melodrama. Todd McCarthy wrote about the film in The Hollywood Reporter, and even though in his opinion Hanks didn't look very believable with a cigarette in his mouth, thanks to his image of a good guy, but he, quote, provides a fine foil and ultimately partner in potential crime for Streep's Graham. 2 years later, the next victorious march. This time in Marielle Heller's biographical drama, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which was based on a real article by Tom Junod in Esquire in 1998. Then and now the main character of the story was Fred Rogers, an American TV host, writer, and priest who was played by Hanks. In the article titled, Can You Say Hero?, the author not only revealed Rogers' identity, but also described the protagonist's strong influence on his reviewer. Heller's film tells of their meeting and how the journalist changed his life thanks to Rogers. Tom tried to convey his character as accurately as possible, which critics of the film would later write about. Everything from everyday routine to personal experiences, the team tried to adhere to the original as much as possible. By the way, this filming was also quick and took only a few months, which did not affect the result. As a result, the film was very warmly received by audiences, and Hanks received nominations for the Oscar, BAFTA, Critics' Choice, Golden Globe, and Screen Actors Guild Awards for his role. In 2020, the actor returns to war dramas in collaboration with director Aaron Schneider. The story centers around the destroyer USS Keeling, radio call sign Greyhound, and its crew, led by Captain Ernest Krauss. Their target is a North Atlantic convoy which is aimed at delivering important supplies to the USSR during the Battle of the Atlantic during World War II. Tom not only played the lead role, but also took on the role of the film's screenwriter, and apparently he approached the issue very seriously, considering how highly the stern restraint of the presentation and attention to detail will be appreciated in the end. But the film failed to make much money. Due to the pandemic, the release was canceled, and the rights to show Greyhound were sold to the video service Apple TV+. Not deviating from the course, Hanks appeared in another drama that same year, Paul Greengrass's Western, News of the World, which was a screen adaptation of the novel of the same name by Paulette Giles. The actors shared the leading role with the young Helena Zingel, and on the screen you'll see a story about the difficult relationship between a young German orphan and a stern veteran whose task is to deliver the girl to her relatives, crossing Texas in the late 19th century. On this dangerous journey, 2 lonely people find family in each other, and a father-daughter relationship is born between Jefferson Kidd and Joanna.
Captain Johanna, go.
Yes? If that's what you want.
Paul Greengrass's hybrid Western has depth, beauty, topical resonance, and a mesmerizing rising star. Film critic Mark Kermode would say in his review for The Guardian. But despite generally positive reviews, the film was released only for Netflix without the opportunity to see the big screen. From westerns to science fiction, another project that was eventually released only on the Apple TV Plus streaming service was Miguel Sapochnik's drama Finch, a post-apocalyptic story about the touching relationships between seemingly unusual main characters, an inventor dying of illness, his dog, and a robot whose job it is to protect the dog after the death of its owner. The film was certainly criticized, mainly for its simple plot and naivety in depicting the world after a global tragedy. Hanks himself, whose performance was at the same high level as decades ago, was not criticized. It is too early for the actor to be in the run-of-the-mill films of aging actors, his fans believe. While Hanks is wonderful as the fiercely determined, flawed, and often impatient Finch, it is Jeff who helps keep the survival drama grounded with a balance of humor and pathos. Will be written in one of the reviews. As if realizing that his golden age has not passed, the actor continues to work hard even now. In 2022, the world saw 3 works starring Hanks: the biopic about Elvis Presley from Baz Luhrmann, the animated film Pinocchio by Robert Zemeckis, and the comedy A Man Called Otto by Mark Forster. The most successful was Elvis, in which Tom took on the role of Colonel Tom Parker. Work on the project began in 2014, but was suspended until 2019, until Tom agreed to star as Colonel Tom Parker, the manager of a famous musician. Would you recognize him in this role if you didn't know for sure? But for such a crucial change in appearance, Tom could no longer afford to mess with his weight, especially considering the diabetes he was diagnosed with in 2013. Therefore, to become Colonel Parker, the actor had to resort to prosthetic makeup and a special suit, which is a one-piece bodysuit meant to thicken an actor's appearance to make him look overweight. There was one more sacrifice that Tom had to make.
Haircut I have to have in order to portray Colonel Tom Parker.
Okay.
Check out this horrible. Can you see that?
No.
Look at that thing.
Wait,
Look
wait,
at that
wait.
goofy.
Sit down.
The role of Presley's manager was not very simple, not only because of the external changes. In essence, Parker is an antagonist in the film who financially and morally oppresses the main character, which is bold for the image we are already familiar with. And not all viewers were ready to see Tom in the role of a dirty salesman. This is exactly what Luhrmann was trying to achieve. The gargantuan size and complexity of Parker would define the air for Elvis to be internal and spiritual, Luhrmann tells EW. Without that, it'd be hard to reflect Elvis against it. And I went, I bet Tom Hanks would be into playing a dark note on his instrument that no one could see coming. It was important for the actor and director to show a familiar story from a completely different angle. Everyone knows about Elvis. His ups and downs have become public knowledge. But the truth is, Hanks and Luhrmann believed that without Elvis there would be no Colonel, and without the Colonel, there would be no Elvis. For time, the task was to show Parker as a multi-layered and ambiguous villain, and in a duet with Austin Butler as Presley, about the complex relationship between manager and star, the relationship that made and destroyed the king. One reason is because the Elvis story has become a trope. Everybody's very familiar with it, and I don't think it'd been done the most righteous justice in order to capture why Elvis was this bend in the river of American culture. But the actor didn't have much material to understand his character, so he had to work hard on this image. I had the luxury of essentially recreating somebody who no one really knew, the two-time Oscar winner says. I had a different layer of expectations. Peter Garlnick's 2 monographs on Elvis came to the rescue, as well as rare footage of interviewers given by Parker. One of them is an interview from 1956 in which the Colonel's plans for his protege were already traced. You hear the Colonel literally lay out the foundation for how he was going to make Elvis immortal over the course of the next 30 years. Marvels Hanks. In addition, the actor had to work for a long time on his character's accent, as he was originally from the Netherlands. This accent became the stumbling block that critics attacked, considering it insufficiently authentic. The actor himself comments on the criticism with humor.
William Conacher, our dialect coach, kept saying, no, that's not it.
Otherwise, the film received many positive reviews, as well as 3 Golden Globe nominations, one of which it won. For Best Actor in a Drama Film, for Austin Butler. But for the director himself, the most important criticism came from one person, Presley's ex-wife, Priscilla. They sent her a few clips of the film, after which Luhrmann received the best review of his career. She said, I just wasn't ready for that. Every breath of Austin, every move, the spirit of the person, the humanity, the man, not the icon, not the person that someone thinks they know because they made it up in their head. She said, my husband was here today. Hanks' next work was more like an attempt to find something new in a standard image. An old grump with a big heart. This is how you can characterize the main character of A Man Called Otto. The idea was not original. It was the second screen version of the famous novel by Frederick Backman, A Man Called Otto, in which the main character, an embittered and lonely misanthrope, tries to lose his life after the death of his beloved wife. But random circumstances, as well as a feud with neighbors, give him a chance for a new life.
It's in your backpack. What pocket? There's a million pockets.
What?
My father used to smile like that.
I'm not smiling.
Exactly.
Many critics did not believe Tom. The tangle of a grumpy curmudgeon who opposes peace did not stick together with Hanks in their imaginations. The actor was called implausible in his role, despite the depth with which he managed to convey all the inner experiences of his character. There were also complaints about the plot of the film itself, and in particular about the comic subtext of the scenes in which Otto tries to take his own life. On aggregator websites, the film received mixed reviews and a low rating of 6 out of 10. The critic Victoria Luxford wrote about it, quote, mawkish and tonally messy, A Man Called Otto squanders a persistent story about loneliness in favor of old geezer antics. Not even the universally beloved Hanks can save a film that mishandles its sentiment so badly. Do you agree with her opinion? Write your impressions in the comments. The actor's latest well-known work to date was a rather unusual film, the retro-futuristic comedy Asteroid City by Wes Anderson, a well-known adherent of independent cinema. The film pleased with its star cast. Besides Hanks, Jason Schwartzman, Scarlett Johansson, Jeffrey Wright, Tilda Swinton, Bryan Cranston, Edward Norton, and Adrian Brody took part in the filming. Anderson, as director and co-writer of the screenplay, was inspired by the mythology of aliens and UFOs, and therefore the basis of the story is a convention of young scientists in the fictional desert asteroid city. These events are depicted both as the play itself and as the process of its creation. That is, in essence, there are two timelines, color and black and white, which the director chose back in The French Dispatch, and each has its own plot and mood, and therefore in a unique production, actors play actors, and also actors play actors who play ordinary people. Don't ask, just watch. Tom's a minor character here, the father-in-law of the main character named Stanley Zack, whom he comes to visit after his wife's death.
It's the end of that car. Andromeda, check under the floor mats. Come on. Pandora, check the side pockets. Cassiopeia, check the cracks between the seats. Take everything.
Some reviewers expressed extreme surprise at Tom Hanks' involvement in an independent art house film of Anderson's caliber. Could this be due to his less than successful previous work? While Anderson's work is often criticized for its plot and similar approach to execution, everyone agrees on one thing: his visual style is truly a masterpiece. It's no wonder that The Guardian called the film an exhilarating triumph of pure style, while Variety called the piece visually dazzling and dramatically inert. Overall, the film received a very good rating of 84% positive reviews on the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes. But it wasn't only on the screen that the American favorite was waiting for success. That same year, Tom released his book, the novel The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece, which tells about the seamy side of the film industry based on the creation of a multi-million action movie. So one day, an American soldier returns home after World War II and makes a huge impression on his 5-year-old nephew. The boy grows up and creates a graphic novel based on his memories and turns his uncle into one of his characters. And if films usually become screen adaptations of books, then in this situation, everything is just the opposite.
I had never read a book that captured the movie-making experience as I experienced making a movie.
And even though the novel is a work of fiction, its basis is all the experience of a career that includes more than 100 films. The book has already received a good number of positive reviews from readers around the world. But although the novel was a debut, it was not the only attempt of the actor's pen. Back in 2017, Tom released a collection of short stories, Uncommon Type. These stories came about by chance, inspired by the New Yorker anthologies and the stories of J.D. Salinger. Tom wrote his first short story, which he sent to his friend Steve Martin. The first story was about some people who launched themselves from a suburban driveway in a rocket that loops around the moon, then return to Earth. He wrote a draft in a fevered 2.5 days. It was Martin who played a key role in the story's publication, sending a copy to the New Yorker, which published the story under the title Alan Bean +4. It was a surprising piece, Martin says. It was well written, it was charming, and it had flair. It was madness, the actor recalled. But after the success of the first story, the publisher approached Tom with a request for more stories, which eventually resulted in a whole book. Tom admitted that he worked on the books constantly at any convenient moment, of course using his favorite typewriters. I made movies in New York, Berlin, Budapest, and Atlanta, and wrote in all of them. I wrote in hotels during press tours. I wrote on vacation, on planes, at home, and in the office, he recalled. It was after his first success that Tom began to think about a novel. His editor, Peter Gethers, suggested that Hanks write about his work, which the actor rejected. I said there's nothing worse than hearing an actor talk about being an actor. But then he thought, what if the story were broader and set in the universe of filmmaking? Because he says, everyone thinks they know how movies are made. Or as Tom puts it more grandly, like all cumulative endeavors that require a collaboration among artists who are all operating at the absolute top of their game, making a movie is exactly like starting a business, waging a war, getting to the moon, figuring out how to treat a disease, or coming up with public policy in order to make a city work better. Making a movie is as unknowable and as complex as any great saga or odyssey that is wrought with many turns of fate. Early on, he came up with a title. It would be called The Making of Another Major Motion Picture Masterpiece. Tom enjoyed the experience of writing a novel. Was the new niche easy for an actor?
Isn't it great? Oh, how did you write that? I sat down at a desk for hours on end and tried to come up with the stuff that made sense that everybody could understand. Boy, that sounds like fun, doesn't it?
Mr. Hanks turned out to be a real writer with a capital W. Some stories in this book will make you laugh out loud, others will move you to tears. Stephen Fry, the famous British actor and writer, described the book. But if you think that good guy Tom Hanks is not being exposed, you are wrong. All attempts to find the actor's dark side usually fail miserably, until the recent case related to the alleged exposure of QAnon and the conspiracy theory surrounding Tom and other celebrities. The actor has become the target of scandalous accusations and statements related to crimes against children. Hanks himself takes the situation calmly. However, he still couldn't completely abstract himself from the situation. It was Hillary Clinton, I won't say the other names, other famous people, me involved in some sort of satanic thing, and for a moment I said, oh my god, we have to do something about that. And I'm going to say for about 45 minutes I was undone by this. And on the 46th minute I said, he laughs, oh, I'm going to fight this? There was an attempted murder in this story, and cooperation with the FBI. In the end, everything died down, and Tom himself decided not to take an active part in this battle, realizing that sooner or later it would fade away. Yes, let's say that recently there are more and more controversial projects, strange theories, and conflict situations in his filmography, but we still love and appreciate, even not always, Mr. Nice Guy, because he's so unique in his kind. Despite his age, Tom Hanks has no plans to retire as an actor.
There is nothing that is more fun. Coming to work and putting on clothes and pretending to be somebody else for a living, that's a blast.
And we are very happy about that. This means that over time, this video will be filled with new films and interesting facts. And if you haven't seen our other videos, quickly click on the icon that appeared on your screen and enjoy. You are watching the Biographer channel. See you soon.